We begin this Working for You special report with an exclusive one-on-one interview with Yellowstone Park Superintendent Cam Shawley. NBC Montana's Jonathan May reports what happened during those critical moments to save lives and clear America's crown jewel.
Videos show it all, capturing the aftermath following the historic June 13th floods. Government officials calling it a 500-year flood. The rushing waters caused devastation in Yellowstone like no one has ever seen before.
It's hard to believe it's been a year.
Flows were recorded at just over 50,000 cubic feet per second the morning of the flood, almost 20,000 cubic feet per second more than the previous recorded floods in the Yellowstone area. Yellowstone Park Superintendent Cam Shawley tells me before the natural disaster, everyone expected an ideal year in the park.
I'm just coming off of a couple years of COVID, thinking it was going to be normal, and this was a big curveball for these gateway communities. For the visitors, for the park staff.
Shawley recounts the park had roughly 12,000 people inside when the flooding started. Park rangers started closing corridors to the public when they noticed the rough waters coming down too fast. Shawley believes if they hadn't, a bigger catastrophe would have happened.
It's unquestionable there would have been a major loss of life.
Everyone was evacuated out of the park in 24 hours. Shawley says it was a weather event that has never happened under such difficult circumstances. It took all hands on deck to get the job done.
Just can't say enough about everyone's effort to pull together, understand how big of a challenge it was, but how critical it was that we responded to that challenge in the way we did.
Once the water started to settle, the damage reports came in and the work started to get everything back open. The park reopened the South Loop 9 days after the flood. Reports showed most of the damage hit the northern side of the park.
We almost lost the Canyon Village and the Old Faithful wastewater systems. That's another reason we cleared the entire park. People are like, well, you didn't have to evacuate the whole park. We really did.
Total repairs could cost up to billions of dollars. Thanks to federal assistance, the park has over $900 million of long-term flood recovery repair money. They're still planning on how to use it, but as of right now, Yellowstone is open for business. Shawley says the park and its gateway communities preserved and are ready to welcome back visitors again this summer. In Mammoth, Jonathan May, NBC Montana.
It was an amazing achievement to rebuild the road that brought the north entrance back to Gardner, but the work is far from over. When floodwaters destroyed the north entrance road into Yellowstone, Gardner lost its national park. Restaurants, hotels, tour services all depended on this road being open. Park officials knew they had to act fast. They quickly determined an old one-lane, 10-foot wide dirt road from 1879 that served as the original entrance into Yellowstone would be the fastest and the best way to reconnect Gardner. Just 2 days after the June 13th flood, crews started hauling and applying 20,000 tons of gravel to the road.
It's a testament to what can happen when everybody comes together and focuses on getting something accomplished.
The old Gardner Road winds for 4 miles. It took 4 months for workers to get it ready to open to the public, paving and turning the old dirt road into 2 lanes and installing 5,000 feet of guardrail for safety, costing around $50 million.
We're going to have full access this year. A lot of work to do still, but the reality is that because of the efforts of last summer, it's going to allow us to have a good summer this year and into the future.
Shawley hopes the old Gardner Road will serve as the north entrance for the next 5 years or so as they weigh options for a new permanent road.
There's no great option, frankly, for the permanent road between here and Gardner. So we're going to look and figure out what the best option is. It could be a mixture of the road work that we've done on the old Gardner Road and a new road on in and around that.
There's also an option to put in a new road in a completely new location. Shawley says that they will assess the impacts on resources, visitor experiences, and costs as they make a decision in the future.
I'm here at the northern entrance at Yellowstone National Park at the gateway community of Gardner to find out how businesses are rebounding from the flooding from last year.
Welcoming the guests back from all over the country. The flood is no longer here.
We're looking forward to having another, hopefully big summer, what we expected last year.
Business owners are ecstatic to be welcoming back tourists, but it was a long climb back to the top following the devastating Yellowstone flooding. According to the Gardner Chamber of Commerce, businesses lost millions of dollars and most of the money generated is through tourism. nearly 20 businesses didn't make any profit in 2022. I spoke with the executive director of the Gardner Chamber of Commerce to ask what the biggest challenge was when the natural disaster occurred.
The detriment of the flood, I guess, would be the impact to our economy, but overall that road being impassable and having to reconstruct it. So not being able to access Yellowstone for our busiest season was the biggest impact here.
Petkoff says what lifted businesses in the city to push through the obstacles was knowing the northern entrance highway was going to be reopened eventually.
That was kind of the light at the beginning of our tunnel forward. I think that was really just kind of what held people strong going through the season.
Now Gardner businesses are anticipating a busy travel season and they couldn't be more thrilled.
We're very, very happy to be back and we hope that people come. Usually people love their parks, so I'm pretty sure that...
Please come, because we're ready to go.
In Gardner, Michael Santoscoy, NBC Montana.
When flooding started, the Montana National Guard jumped from training into action. In 3 days, 6 helicopters and 55 aviation personnel rescued over 80 people and numerous pets. On June 15th, 16 soldiers had boots on the ground in Red Lodge, helping law enforcement direct traffic around damaged roads. Instructor pilot Tom Kenyon revisited the Red Lodge area this May and described what he saw.
You can still see the scars that happened from the flood. Bridges are washed out, and then you can see where the high water went. You can see these massive trees. So once the water receded, flying back over that same land and just seeing how extensive the damage was and where the water went, it really kind of opened your eyes.
As you just heard, Red Lodge was one of the hardest hit areas. The city's mayor takes NBC Montana's Jonathan May along for a first-hand look at the aftermath 1 year later.
The water was just pulsing through there. You could see a tree that just went screaming through the whole structure.
Mayor Kristen Cogswell took me on a car ride across Red Lodge so I could see the scars the flood left behind.
Pretty much of a disaster, but it's a work in progress.
The city woke up to a horrific natural disaster on June 13th last year. Bridges washed away and raging waters around this fallen home. Roads torn apart and cars left in ditches. More than 100 homes flooded in Carbon County, and officials say about 8 public bridges washed away. The mayor tells me she'll never forget what happened.
The water coming down Broadway, and just the sheer noise that these tumbling boulders, hundreds of tumbling boulders just came pulsing down the creek. I mean, it was I've never heard anything like that before.
After the floodwaters arrived, community members hoped water levels would recede as quickly as they rose. They didn't, leading everyone to work together to salvage what they could.
The residents came from all over. There were hundreds of residents that were filling sandbags and trying to just stop the water. And, the efforts that people made I'll never forget that.
While you can still see where the waters flowed through the city, the mayor tells me with help from the state and federal agencies, much has been repaired. In February, FEMA approved $1.5 million in public assistance funding for road repairs in Red Lodge. The goal is to repair 27 sites along 11 different roadways, and the mayor hopes the improvements will also be able to withstand future flooding events.
You can see a lot of this riprap that will channel the creek a lot better. We didn't have a lot of that beforehand.
Cogswell says there are still more projects to take care of, and adds Red Lodge residents are keeping their fingers crossed that a flood like this never happens again. In Red Lodge, Jonathan May, NBC Montana.
The natural disaster left Montanans stunned. NBC Montana's Heidi Miley has this look back at some of the most shocking moments caught on camera.
Jaw-dropping video shows the Yellowstone River cutting a path through the town of Red Lodge, wiping out roads and bridges, stranding vehicles along flooded streets, and sending residents scrambling to divert water away from properties. In Park County near Immigrant, the raging Yellowstone washed the Carbella Bridge downriver. Just 30 miles away, surging water swept away Yellowstone National Park employee housing.
This was a housing unit that 6 of our employees and families lived in the town of Gardner. It was fairly immediately Sunday night compromised by high flood waters to the point where we evacuated it first thing on Monday morning.
Neighbors band together to help, flying people and supplies in and out of the stranded town of Gardner.
You just look at the bridges that are missing, and you look at the people that are standing on opposite sides of the river looking at each other, wondering how this is going to end.
Residents in Absaroka watched in shock as Rosebud Creek rose to levels never before recorded.
The river's going, it's getting wider, and there's nothing nobody can do.
Crews worked fast and furiously to reinforce riverbanks. Days later, communities took stock of the damage, upended houses in Stillwater County, and cut off bridges and roads. In Red Lodge, rubble trapped vehicles, and roadways were left chewed up and impassable. Residents in Livingston picked up the pieces, with mud and debris coating floors and water still standing in basements. And Yellowstone National Park officials asked for patience, assuring the community they will rebuild.
We will do everything in our power to get the recovery done as quickly as possible.
As they begin the long journey to recover from what experts call a 500-year flood. For NBC Montana, I'm Heidi Miley.
Still ahead, we're following the money. Just how much did the federal government offer for relief efforts? We did some digging and found out who gave what to whom. Where the money went, we'll let you know. And later, using 3D weather technology, the NBC Montana Severe Weather Alert Team shows us why this natural disaster was truly a record-breaking event. We're taking a look at the dollars and cents behind relief efforts. First, a snapshot of some of the federal government's assistance. FEMA's kicking in over $21 million so far. According to their website, the agency approved $3.6 million, covering 330 individual assistance applications. Also, for public assistance, FEMA obligated $16.9 million, as well as nearly $443,000 in hazard mitigation assistance. The Federal Highway Administration also added over $71 million for emergency repairs. There's also been an outpouring of local support. One example, the Southwest Montana Flood Relief Fund in Park County. We told you how the fund raised over $350,000 in less than 24 hours after the floods hit, while the fund went on to raise over $3 million, helping more than 400 individuals, businesses, and nonprofits impacted by the flood. Local officials tell us about half of that came from a benefit event spearheaded by musician John Mayer.
It's not a surprise to me that people were really excited and willing to open up their wallets and support the people of Park County. And when they found out that people were hurting here in Park County, they were more than happy to help with a donation to support them.
Officials report nearly 90% of the $3 million plus raised has been distributed so far in Park County. As floodwaters rose and people evacuated from their homes, campsites, and businesses, the Red Cross came to help, setting up 6 shelters in 2 days, spanning from Fromberg to Red Lodge and from Bridger to Bozeman. 104 people volunteered, some traveling within the state and others flying in from Alaska and California. We spoke with the state's Red Cross Communications Director about a family of 4 who were flown out of a campsite and taken to a Red Cross shelter after the roads washed out in Absaroka.
Our volunteer workers were able to get them things like water, cookies, and a sandwich, get them sat down and comforted, access to things like a shower or a place to take a nap if they needed, and they were just incredibly grateful. Sometimes it's just the small touch points, the small things that help people through really a difficult, traumatic time.
The Red Cross helped the family arrange a flight back home from Billings to Washington, D.C., and for Montanans with severely damaged or destroyed homes. The Red Cross provided 2 rounds of flood relief financial assistance funded by thousands of donation dollars. The NBC Montana Sky Team and viewers safely captured some of the most dramatic video from high above. Take a look.
We ask you all the time to submit your photos and videos. It's simple and easy to do. Here's how.
Go to the NBC Montana app and select Explore. Then select the Chime In option. Scroll down to submit content. Add your pictures or video by pressing Upload. Enter a comment, then select your category. It can be weather, pets, Montana moment, and much more. Enter your name and an email address, then select Agree.
So stay with NBC Montana to see your photos on air and online. And I'll be working for you, bringing you the latest weather forecast.
Depend on Chief Meteorologist Brooke Foster. Weekday mornings on NBC Montana Today.
Last year's flooding was one for the history books. The NBC Montana Severe Weather Alert Team is always working for you. Starting with the Chief Meteorologist Brooke Foster, she explains what an atmospheric river is and how it contributed to the flooding.
Think of the atmospheric river as a river, but in the sky. It's a narrow band of moisture, and as the moisture moves inland, the mountains force it upwards. This moisture then cools and condenses, producing rain, and if it's cold enough, it even produces some snowfall. Depending on the duration, atmospheric rivers can produce very heavy snow, flooding, and even mudslides. Now, during the second week of June in 2022, an atmospheric river soaked the Pacific Northwest. It took aim on the Yellowstone region. The Absaroka Beartooth Mountains saw anywhere between 1 to as much as 5 inches of rainfall. This combined with 2 to almost 5 inches of snowmelt. Now, this sudden runoff caused our rivers and streams to swell. One notable rise occurred on the Lamar River, which is a tributary of the Yellowstone River. On the night of June 12th through the 13th, the river saw an increase to 17 feet, breaking the old record of over 12 feet set back in 1996. Now, this sudden rise prompted flood watches, warnings, and advisories to be issued to warn residents and those in the park of the potential danger. And that's why we always encourage you to download our NBC Montana weather app. Just search NBC Montana in your app store. From the Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Brooke Foster.
On the morning of June 13, 2022, unprecedented amounts of rainfall caused substantial flooding within Yellowstone National Park and in surrounding communities such as Gardner and Red Lodge. The Yellowstone River experienced what is known as a 500-year flood event, which caused severe damage to roads, water and wastewater systems, power lines, and other critical infrastructure. So what constitutes a 500-year flood designation, and how high did water levels reach when they crested during this flood event? Terms such as 100 and 500-year floods were developed to place floods in context that allows society to address such issues as the risk to life and property, and to study and understand the environmental effects of floods. To define these designations, an annual exceedance probability, or AEP, is used. A 1% AEP is equivalent to the 100-year flood, meaning that a river has a 1 in 100 chance of equaling or exceeding a particular height level in any given year, with an average recurrence of every 100 years. The 500-year flood is far less likely, corresponding to an AEP of just 0.2%, meaning that a flood of this size or greater has a 1 in 500 chance of occurring in any given year. Two stream gauges along the Yellowstone River at Corwin Springs and Livingston reached peak stream flow greater than the 1 in 500 year event. At Corwin Springs, the river crested at a record 14.72 feet. The peak water level at Livingston was also a record at a staggering 11.63 feet. Even the stream flow recorded on the Yellowstone River at Billings was between the 1 in 100 year event and the 1 in 500 year flood at 16.37 feet. As quickly as the waters rose, they began to recede, leaving only destruction behind. Since the flood, much of Yellowstone National Park and the surrounding communities have cleaned up and recovered. However, a full recovery may still be many years in the future. I'm meteorologist Mitchell Coombs reporting for NBC Montana.
And coming up, viral videos of flooding saw huge numbers on our social media platforms. We break down the top 5 trending clips. Flooding in southwest Montana brought huge numbers to our social media platforms. Kylie Gibson is in the studio with a look at our top trending videos on Facebook.
Viewers sent in some amazing videos of flooding around the region. And when we posted them on social media, the shocking sights and sounds of the raging Yellowstone River went viral. At number 5, a bird's eye view of flooding in Red Lodge. You can see water rushing through the main part of town, inundating homes and businesses. Beartooth Slingshots shared this amazing drone video with us. Taking number 4, the Yellowstone River running high and fast through Gardner. Kate shot this video from a vantage point behind the Gardner Market. At number 3, a heartbreaking shot of a home in Gardner swept away by the raging Yellowstone River. We later learned this building housed seasonal workers at Yellowstone, some of whom lost everything to the rushing floodwaters. Angie captured in this video. In the number 2 spot, back to Red Lodge, where Clarence shot this drone footage. You can see logs and debris blocking city streets while floodwater rushes through town, even washing out some roads and bridges as citizens scramble to place sandbags in an effort to divert the water away from homes and properties. And in our top trending video, a first look at major devastation in Yellowstone National Park, where officials shot this video from a helicopter as they surveyed damage to the north entrance road between Gardner and Mammoth Hot Springs. You can see parts of the road completely wiped off the map by floodwaters, forever changing the iconic landscape of Yellowstone National Park and closing the north entrance for almost 5 months. You can watch these videos again on our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok as well for all the latest headlines and trending media. If you have photos or videos you want to share with us, just upload them to nbcmontana.com/chime-in. In studio, Kylie Gibson, NBC Montana.
We posted an extensive photo gallery at NBCMontana.com. If you see news happening, be sure to join our team and share your pictures or videos. Thank you for watching this NBC Montana Working for You special. When there's breaking news or severe weather, you can always count on us to empower and alert you and your community.